everyone. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Margaret.
And welcome to today's presentation, Food, Nature's Medicine. So this is the second of 6 virtual presentations that will span over the next few months. And the link to our website is in the chat, and you can learn about all the presentations there.
We are graduate students at the CUNY School of Public Health. We are working together as interns with the Coalition for Healthy School Food. We're excited about tonight's program and hope you will join us in the upcoming presentations as well. While we welcome all to these presentations, they have been designed with parents and caretakers in mind. Next week, we will be sending out a recording of this presentation along with unanswered questions, as well as scientific references and sources for the information we covered.
So our first speaker tonight is Dr. Bandana Chawla, and she's a board-certified physician in internal medicine and lifestyle medicine. She co-created the lifestyledocs.com practice, which focuses on eating plant-based foods, being fit, reducing stress, and connecting more to achieve holistic wellness. And our second speaker this evening is Dr. Munish Chawla, a board-certified physician in diagnostic radiology and lifestyle medicine. Upon becoming aware of the research-proven health benefits and evidence-based approach that lifestyle medicine uses to treat and reverse chronic diseases, he became certified in this new and exciting specialty.
You will have the opportunity to submit questions to today's presenters by typing your questions in the Q&A tab, not the chat. You may submit your questions at any time during the presentation. We will answer as many as we can during the second half of the presentation. For each speaker will talk for about 15 minutes, and then we will have our Q&A. And finally, we will have you fill out our closing questionnaire. And remember, filling out the pre and post questionnaire makes you eligible for the prizes. And now, here is Dr. Bandana Chawla.
Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Chawla, and I want to thank Coalition for Healthy School Food for giving us this opportunity to talk about this important topic of food as nature's medicine. I will do the first part of the presentation, and my husband, Dr. Munish Chawla, will do the second part of the presentation, and then we will both be available for the Q&A. So let's get started. All right. This is a poster that actually hangs in our clinic. It's a quote by Hippocrates, the father of Western medicine, saying, "Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food." And it is just as relevant today, 2,500 years later, than it was then. In fact, it's probably even more important today, because what we're seeing is an epidemic of chronic diseases. As you all know, the rise of diabetes, autoimmune diseases, cancer, and heart disease is higher than ever. Obesity, over 70% of Americans today are overweight or obese. And I'm really excited that Coalition for Healthy School Food is doing these topics specifically later on in the series. So there'll be cardiologists talking about heart disease, and there'll be experts talking about diabetes and weight management. So I look forward to those presentations coming up. Let's look at the rise of obesity. We know that rise of chronic diseases is linked to rise of obesity. Here is a graph that I downloaded from the CDC website that shows the prevalence of obesity among US adults in 2011. And let's look at the next one, showing it in 2020. As you can see, I am in Houston, Texas, where the prevalence of obesity is 35 to 40% of the population. You guys in New York are skinnier, but still 25 to 30% of the population is obese. So with this comes a host array of chronic diseases. In fact, CDC says that over 80% of chronic diseases in the US are due to diet and lifestyle. Hence, it makes sense to address diet and lifestyle as a therapeutic approach to prevent, manage, and reverse many of these diseases. So that's why my husband and I are super excited about this new field of lifestyle medicine. And we were both board certified in 2018. With our patients, we help them improve all 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine: nutrition, exercise, stress management, avoidance of tobacco, limiting alcohol, sleep, and healthy community and healthy relationships. Oh, I'm sorry. Nutrition is perhaps the most important component, and that is what we will focus on today. So, one thing I did want to mention, that because lifestyle medicine is an evidence-based field, it does recommend a predominantly whole food plant-based diet, because that has been what's been shown to prevent diseases and improve our health. All right, before we look at what whole food plant-based diet looks like, let's look at how we are eating currently as Americans. So this shows the standard American diet. 63% of our calories are coming from processed foods, with added fats and oils, sugars, and refined grains. And we'll soon be going over the difference between whole grains and refined grains. 25% of our calories are coming from animal food, which includes meat, dairy, eggs, fish, and seafood. And I want to point out that cholesterol is only found in animal foods. And of course, there is the big link between cholesterol and heart disease, which has been the #1 cause of death in the US since 1900s, early 1900s. And only 12% of our calories are coming from plant foods, which would be vegetables, fruits, legumes, nuts and seeds, and whole grains. And I also want to point out that fiber, which we will soon talk about the benefits of fiber, is only found in plant foods. And 97% of Americans are not getting the recommended amount of fiber in their diet. One other thing, if you're wondering why this 12% is divided into light green and dark green, what that means is that only 6% of these are whole plant foods. The other 6% are actually things like potatoes and French fries, or tomato being counted in ketchup, or apples being counted in apple pie. This is how we should be eating. This is what the pyramid of a whole food plant-based diet looks like. You can have large amounts of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, such as brown rice, oats, quinoa, lots of dark leafy green vegetables, legumes, which include beans, peas, lentils, and seeds, and then small amount of high fat whole foods like avocados, nuts, and dates. And when we eat that way, when we eat a predominantly whole food plant-based diet, we automatically start moving towards our ideal body weight. And this is the reason. Whole plant foods are very high in nutrient density and very low in caloric density. So this is a great graphic that shows how much 400 calories of oil will fill up in our stomach, how much 400 calories of beef will fill up, and how much 400 calories of vegetables will fill up. So our stomachs like to have a certain amount of food coming through every day. And when we eat plant foods, we're able to eat large amounts while it's still low calories. So that triggers the stretch receptors in our stomach and gives the signal that we are full. So without having to starve ourselves, we're able to eat foods and still move towards the ideal body weight. The other mechanism through which plant foods are very health promoting is because they're very high in anti-inflammatory properties. So this slide is showing lots of different plant foods that lower inflammation in our body. These same foods also are very strong antioxidants, which means they also lower our risk for cancer and actually slow down aging process as well. So I wanted to also point out things like cayenne pepper and oregano and kelp and cilantro and chives and cumin seeds. So these herbs and spices that are part of the plant foods are very, very strong and powerful anti-inflammatories and antioxidants. So even using small amounts of these really is health promoting. And they've also been shown to really help the immune system, which is very important right now during a pandemic. So, use those spices and herbs to make your foods not just more flavorful, but also a lot healthier. The next thing I want to discuss is phytonutrients. So we've all heard about plants having vitamins and minerals, and vitamins and minerals were discovered by scientists in 1950s and 1960s, but phytonutrients we did not know about until 1980s. And since then, we've discovered over 25,000 phytonutrients found in plant foods. So phytonutrients are substances that plants make to protect themselves from environmental threats. But when we ingest them, they actually do amazing things in human body to protect us as well from diseases. And even though they've discovered over 25,000 phytonutrients and they think there are many more that we haven't discovered yet, let's take a few minutes to just go over 5 of them today. So the first one we'll talk about is lycopene, which is found in red tomatoes and any red colored cherries, red foods, and it's been shown to have anti-cancer properties, especially protects against prostate cancer in men. The next one you guys may have heard about, resveratrol in red wine. You don't have to do red wine, any red colored, purple color foods like red grapes and eggplant, blueberries, all of these, have resveratrol, which has strong antioxidant properties and helps keeps us young. The next one is lutein, which is found in green vegetables and is very important for eye health and prevents cataracts and age-related macular degeneration. Next one, glucosinolates are found in high odorous vegetables like garlic and onion and mushrooms and cauliflower. And these too have strong anti-cancer properties when cooked. So these foods are actually healthier when cooked. Most fruits and vegetables are healthier when raw. And then beta carotene, many of us have heard about that in terms of carrots and important for eye health. It's a precursor for vitamin A, but it's also been shown to reduce the risk for breast cancer in women. So just 3 to 6 milligrams of beta carotene a day helps reduce the risk of breast cancer. And if you don't like carrots, that's okay. Nature is very generous to where it provides you many other orange-colored fruits and vegetables that you can pick from, like mangoes and butternut squash and sweet potatoes and papayas and bell pepper and cantaloupe and apricots. So lots and lots of things to choose from. I really encourage my patients to eat the rainbow, to really add color to their plate, to try foods from many different colors, because with each color, you get a whole new set of phytonutrients that are really, really important for our health. So as my patients move from a standard American diet towards a whole food plant-based diet, they notice improvement in many diseases. Bowel health and skin health and allergies. And we also notice improvement in numbers, right? So when we check their hemoglobin A1C with diabetes, that's lower. Their cholesterol and triglycerides get lower. Uric acid levels come down and they no longer get gout flare-ups, and the fatty liver resolves because the liver function tests come back to normal. Blood pressure numbers are improved. So we see improvements in many, many aspects of their lives. And so one thing that I do is encourage my patients to watch certain documentaries and read books. And we actually even have a bookshelf in our waiting room where we have books and DVDs that people can borrow and read and return. So What the Health or Forks Over Knives or many of the plant-based books are in the shelf. And one of the books in my clinic shelf is this book by Eric Adams, who is the new mayor of New York City. And we're super excited because he is someone who actually reversed his diabetes and also reversed the blindness he was getting with diabetes and diabetic neuropathy that he was getting by moving to a plant-based diet. So it's nice to have stuff that inspires us and read stories of other people who've improved their health this way. So there's several reasons to move from a standard American diet or SAD diet to a whole food plant-based diet. Eating more plant foods will prevent and reduce incidence of cancer, heart disease, diabetes, obesity, and also brain diseases. There is a definite link between diet and Alzheimer's disease. So eating this way adds years to your life and also life to your years. So it improves our lifespan, but even more importantly, it improves our health span. We're going to now turn over to Dr. Munish Chawla, who will tell us how we can make progress on this path of healthy eating.
Thanks, Dr. Chawla. And as my wife mentioned, that food indeed is nature's medicine. If we eat healthy food, it's really the only medicine we need. So I'm going to go a little bit further into the topics that she discussed. And as our patients, they're moving from the standard American diet, they move towards a more whole food plant-based diet, which is, eating lots of fruits, lots of vegetables, lots of beans and lentils, nuts and seeds, and, whole grains. They ask me, this is the most common question I get. Am I going to get enough protein? Like, where do you get your protein? So this is something I know is in the minds of lots of people. And what I want to do here is just let folks know that every plant food has protein. Some have a little bit more, some have a little bit less. And so there are some good examples of items that have lots of protein, things like tofu, tempeh, especially different beans. All beans and lentils have large amount of protein. Even quinoa, edamame, nuts and seeds are also very good sources of protein. Even things like lettuce, we think of as just mostly water. It is mostly water, but it also has good amount of protein percentage-wise. So this is another slide that I show my patients, as they're moving towards eating more plants, that let's compare. So in this slide, we are comparing 100 grams or 3.5 ounces of beans with 3.5 ounces of beef. So the amount of calories in beans is 341, a little bit more in the beef. So about the same, but look at the difference in fat. The amount of fat in beef is 39 grams, whereas only 1.4 grams in beans. And even more concerning is the amount of saturated fat, because this is the fat that has been shown to be damaging to our cells, increasing our risk for heart disease, increasing insulin resistance, making folks at higher risk for diabetes. So there's no saturated fat in the beans and large amount, 12 grams of saturated fat in the beef. Cholesterol, as Dr. Chawla mentioned, Dr. Bandana Chawla mentioned, is only found in animal foods. So since beans are plant foods, there is zero cholesterol. And the other thing I want to point out is fiber, which is so important for our health. And I'll actually have a slide which goes over the different health benefits of fiber in just a minute, but just notice there's no fiber in the beef and 16 grams of fiber in the beans. And oftentimes when folks are anemic, their blood count is low, even physicians will say that you should include some red meat in your diet because it is a rich source of iron. Here you can see that beans are even better source of iron. So what we should be telling our patients is to eat more beans. And the main reason I chose this slide or have this slide for you is to show you that 3.5 ounces of beans and 3.5 ounces of beef have almost the same protein. Okay, so as I mentioned, that fiber is so important for our health. It helps us keep us regular. And even more importantly, it removes all the carcinogens. These are cancer-causing compounds that get into our diet. It helps them move them out of the body. It is important for for helping us maintain a healthy body weight. When you eat foods that are high in fiber, they're automatically low in calorie, but since fiber fills you up, makes you feel full, you automatically eat less, and thereby supporting a healthy body weight. Fiber is useful to dispose of excess estrogen, and this is very important for women especially. The higher the levels of estrogen, the higher the rate of breast cancer. So it's very important that our body is efficiently removing the excess estrogen, and fiber does a great job of this. And soluble fiber, kind found in oats and several vegetables, lowers our cholesterol levels. So again, helping us with heart disease, and also helps us control our blood sugar. So folks who have diabetes or even pre-diabetes, it is really important that they eat a fiber-rich diet. And just as a reminder, fiber is only present in plant foods. It's not present in any animal food, not even dairy. So another question I get asked pretty frequently, don't I need dairy for calcium? Where am I going to get my calcium if I don't do dairy? Well, this is a slide that tells you that so many plant foods are relatively rich sources of calcium. The particularly rich ones are kale, Swiss chard, Brussels sprouts, bok choy, and especially seeds are a very good source, like pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds, and almonds, and also Brazil nuts. So I just want to reassure my patients that when you're eating plants, you're going to get all the nutrients. You're going to get the vitamins, the minerals, the protein, the right amount of fat, the healthiest type of fat, and the healthy type of carbohydrates. So, I like visuals. So just to kind of put people at ease that, they're going to get enough calcium in their diet, I have this slide. So this compares 8 ounces of whole milk to 8 ounces of tofu. So the amount of calories in tofu, the 8 ounces, is actually a little bit more, 187 calories. But you notice the fat is half as much. And again, there's no saturated fat in the tofu and 4.6 grams of saturated fat in the milk. And cholesterol, 24 milligrams for the milk, and nothing, 0, because plant foods don't have cholesterol. And the protein in this comparison, you can see, is about the same. And the sugars, the milk has about 12.8 grams, and there's no sugar or no sugar in the tofu. But the main reason I have this slide is just to show people that you can get plenty of calcium in plant foods. So 276 milligrams in the whole milk and 267 milligrams in the tofu. So next, let's talk about carbohydrates a little bit. So as Dr. Chawla mentioned before, that we're going to take a little deeper dive onto what whole grains means and what refined grain means. So oftentimes we're asked by our patients, aren't carbs bad for us? Are they good? Are they bad? What they're reading from the media, people are so confused. So my answer is, it depends on what is added and what is taken away. In a whole grain, when we eat everything that nature put in, everything that's healthy, we don't take away the healthy part, then that carbohydrate in whole grains is very healthy. So looking at this example here, we've got the outer bran, and this contains most of the fiber and most of the vitamins. Then we have the endosperm, which is mostly just starch, mostly just sugar. And then you have the germ, which has more vitamins. When we are doing refined grains, we are removing the fiber, removing the germ, and all we're using is the endosperm, the starch or the sugary part of the grain. This is what it means to eating refined grains. And then we take this flour and we turn it into white bread, white pasta, pretzels, and those sort of things. So as you can see, when you're eating just mostly sugar type of the substance in the whole grains, only that is not going to be very healthy. All the fiber, vitamins, minerals are left behind. And secondly, we hardly eat just flour by itself. We add salt, sugar, oils, other fats. We fry these things. So there's lots of added fat, lots of added salt and sugar. And this is what makes the carbs unhealthy. So, I don't like to use the term bad or good, but certainly when you've taken away all the goodness that nature put in, the fiber, the vitamins, the other nutrients, and then you're adding salt, sugar, fat, oils, then that makes them very unhealthy. So things like desserts, candy, French fries, crackers, they are carbohydrates and they're indeed unhealthy. But everything on the right side of the slide is also a carbohydrate. It's also predominantly coming from plants, but nothing from nature has been taken away. When you eat fruits, vegetables, whole grains like oats, quinoa, beans, lentils, berries, nuts, and seeds, all the goodness that nature put in, all the vitamins, minerals, and as Dr. B mentioned, all the phytonutrients, things that really keep us healthy. So if we don't process or refine the grains, all that goodness stays in. So if somebody asks you, are carbs healthy? You can tell them it depends. If you eat them the way nature, the way we get them from the garden, they are definitely healthy. So don't be afraid to eat, bananas, apples, berries, nuts, and seeds. Okay, so, as we're talking in the clinic and encouraging people to add more and more plant foods into their life, I remind them that it's not all or nothing. You don't have to kind of, go from one pattern of eating to a completely whole foods pattern, right away. There is a journey. And what I encourage them to do is start adding more plant foods. So maybe, they're used to doing a fruit smoothie and just adding some spinach to it, making it a green smoothie, eating veggies with hummus as a snack as opposed to chips or crackers, having fruits for desserts as opposed to cakes and cookies. And, just making vegetables like stir fry and brown rice kind of the star of the plate as opposed to just sides. Some folks, trying a day without any meat works really well for them. And, or, just trying one meal during the day, adding some berries to your oatmeal or rolled oats is a wonderful way to have a very nutritious breakfast, which is plentiful and healthy carbohydrates. Here's just, some suggestions that folks can do, if they want to focus on their breakfast. So if you're used to having cereal with dairy milk, a real easy way to make this healthier is choosing oat milk or soy milk. If scrambled eggs is something you enjoy, you can do tofu scramble. And it's amazing, the texture and the taste is quite similar. If on occasion you do bacon or sausage, you can do vegan bacon or sausage. And really, we encourage them to not do highly processed foods such as donuts and muffins, instead doing a whole grain toast with avocado. And if you typically do white bagel with cream cheese, a very easy substitution is to do a whole wheat bagel with hummus. So these are just easy things you can easily get at the grocery store, and you're going to be improving your diet tremendously. So lastly, I kind of encourage my patients that, this is an endeavor. If the whole family is involved, it goes much smoother. So if parents eat healthy, they model good behavior, they're eating fruits, vegetables, whole grains, kids are automatically going to be doing this. And if you keep healthy foods at hand, we didn't eat this pattern all our life, but when we learned about this information, we started transitioning our diet. And, we still had cookies in the cupboard, but we also had berries and cherries and mangoes. And we would, wash the fruit, make it easily available. And slowly, our kids started eating more of the strawberries, more of the blueberries, and less of the cookies. And, before you know it, we stopped buying the cookies and they never even noticed. So another thing that helps is sitting down with dinners together as a family. And if you engage kids in grocery shopping, in preparing the meals, even if the meal doesn't turn out perfectly or the best, if they helped you make the meal, if they're invested in it, they're going to eat it. We can speak that from personal experience. And just kind of broaden your diet horizon. Try Ethiopian food one day, or Spanish food, or Thai food, just so you can learn about all the healthy plant foods, the way other cultures prepare them. So in the end, we want to tell you that nature has provided us with a bounty full of food, which is not only healthy, not only tasty, but can take care of all our health needs. So with that, I want to thank you all for your attention. And I'm going to invite Dr. B back over, and we are happy to take your questions. Thank you so much for your attention.
Doctors, thank you so much for all of that inspiring information for change. That was wonderful. And clearly, eating whole plant foods offers a lot of variety, and it can be really delicious. And personally, for me, I have found that it's dramatically increased the numbers of foods that I enjoy. So that was really wonderful. Thank you so much. So now we will take questions, and we'll answer the questions that apply to most people verbally, and then any questions that may apply to an individual or less people, the doctors will answer those in writing. So doctors, you may go ahead with your question.
Okay. So So I'm just reading from Q&A here. It says, how long does it take to see improvement in health after starting whole food plant-based? Do you want to start?
Sure, sure. So it really, our body is an amazing healing machine. I've seen patients, not eat so healthy for decades. And within a few weeks, they can notice their aches and pains going away. They can notice that brain fog lifting. They can notice that their, sugars are lower and they feel much better. They have more energy. So literally in just a matter of few weeks.
Yeah, so I have the same experience. Sometimes it's the first 2 weeks, first 21 days, maybe that can be a little bit harder because people still have the food addictions for the old processed foods. Also, their stomach's not used to as much fiber, so they can have a little bit of bloating. But really, by 2 months, definitely by 3 months, all my patients are feeling much better than before. All right, so sometimes after work, I'm just too tired to cook. What takeout options do you think have more healthy takeout options? Chinese, Mexican, Indian, Japanese? Yeah, it's a really good question. Yeah, so many of us are working long hours and it's really hard to do the food prep. So yeah, the ethnic foods you mentioned are really good. So some of my patients really like things like Chipotle. More and more places are coming up. We recently tried leaf and grain, is it called? Where you get to pick which veggies and which grains to put in a bowl. Chinese, Thai, I think is great. Indian, we're Indian, but you have to be a little bit careful because it can be very oily sometimes. So really try to pick more of the dishes that are not going to be too oily. Japanese, I think, is great in terms of edamame, the vegan sushi, the miso soup, a lot of the soups. I really encourage my patients to do a lot of soups and stews and smoothies and salads, the S's. They're all very healthy for us. Did you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And some of our favorite ethnic foods, and I think they tend to be maybe even healthier than Chinese and Mexican, would be Ethiopian and Thai, because they tend to be, a little bit less oily and they have a wide variety of plant options.
And Mediterranean.
And Mediterranean food.
Yeah. So if, lots of salads and things to pick from in Mediterranean food. Is almond milk as healthy as oat milk or soy milk?
So in general, all the plant-based milks are not going to be that different other than soy milk. So soy milk is going to have a little bit more protein than the rest of them. So in this country, we fortify whether it's dairy milk or plant-based milk, we fortify it with calcium and vitamin D. And so this way, when you're getting whatever milk you're using for cereal, it's going to have the necessary things. But I encourage people that are, sort of transitioning, choose whatever milk tastes good to you, whatever you can stick with, because there's not going to be that much difference. And, anything you choose instead of dairy milk is going to be much healthier. And so that's my advice. Try different kinds, whatever you enjoy, whatever you like, stick with that one.
Before I go on to the next question, I do want to clarify the very first question. We may not have answered the part about improvements in health. So in terms of like their blood work, cholesterol and sugar and blood pressures, in that we see improvements as little as 2 weeks. So we've had kickstarts where we check it before and after, like a 10-day kickstart or a 2-week kickstart, and we see improvements already. All right, so how do fats differ from saturated fats?
Okay, so saturated fats are one type of fat. So fat is a general category, the fancy or the medical term would be lipids. And within that, you have unsaturated fat and saturated fat. And actually, there's one more category called trans fats. Most of those are artificially man-made, so they have actually been sort of outlawed by the USDA. but there is small amount of trans fat actually in animal products. But for our discussion, we're going to stick with unsaturated fat and saturated fat. So our body needs both. But when you have excess of saturated fats, this is what is linked to most of the chronic diseases, giving us insulin resistance, making us more prone or increasing our risk for diabetes. This is what causes damages to the cells in the arteries, making us more prone for heart disease. So saturated fat is something you want to limit, as low as possible. So that's, our advice to our patients. And actually, there is really good evidence that saturated fat actually increases cholesterol in our body even more than eating cholesterol, just the way our liver works. So cholesterol is a really big risk factor for heart disease. So for lots of reasons, we want to limit the amount of saturated fat in our diet.
Does fiber contribute to a higher caloric density? So I'll take that one. No, fiber is actually really, really good if you are working on weight management, because fiber is that part of carbohydrate that is not digested by us. So it kind of goes through us. And because it's not digested in the small intestine, it gets to the large intestine and takes out other things and gets us moving and prevents constipation. But it's much more than that. Dr. M talked about its other benefits, but one of the other things fiber is really important for is our good bacteria in our gut microbiome. So because it's not digested, it becomes actually food for these bacteria. So these health promoting bacteria in our gut, they mainly feed on fiber and resistant starch. So everything in nature wants to grow and reproduce if it's given the right environment. And the right environment for the healthy bacteria in our gut, the probiotics, is fiber, which is the prebiotics. So you guys hear about probiotics. The prebiotics is the food for the probiotics. And what these bacteria make, short chain fatty acids, are the postbiotics. And these compounds have anti-cancer properties. They help regulate our sugar, lower our cholesterol. So fiber is just, I am a big fan of fiber. So no, it doesn't contribute to higher caloric density. Actually, it really helps us get to our ideal body weight. On the food pyramid, avocados were listed in the use sparingly section. Is that referring to avocado oil, or whole avocados, or both?
Okay, so very good question. So the reason they're listed in the use sparingly, because avocado is one of those plant foods that's actually high in fat. So just as a quick review, 1 gram of protein, 1 gram of carbohydrates has 4 calories, whereas 1 gram of fat has 9 calories. So avocado has much higher fat than, let's say, apples or oranges. So for that reason, it is high in calories. So even though it has healthy fat, it has mostly unsaturated fat, has a little bit of saturated fat, but mostly very healthy fats that are actually health promoting, even so, we want to limit the amount we use because it's so calorie dense. And avocado oil is, again, something we want to use even more sparingly, because we're taking away the fiber, taking away other items, and really just taking just the fat from the avocado, concentrating it and using it as avocado oil. So avocado oil limit very much. Avocado, whole avocados eat moderately, but not as liberally as you would eat fruits, vegetables, beans, and that sort of thing.
Recommendations for someone with Crohn's disease or IBS who have a hard time digesting fiber. Wow, that is a really good question. You guys are asking such good questions. Yeah, so I'll start with that. You're absolutely right. People with inflammatory bowel disease or irritable bowel syndrome, when they first start moving to this diet, they do have a little trouble digesting fiber. So there are a few tips and tricks that I've noticed work really well on my patients. One is you want to take it slow. So slowly increase the fiber in your diet. And the other is breaking it down a bit seems to really help. I'll give you an example. So some of them, they can't handle beans or can't handle chickpeas. But if they put it in a food processor and make it into hummus consistency, even like one of my patients would turn her beans into like a hummus, even red beans and kidney beans or pinto beans into a hummus consistency, then she could handle it. And then slowly she could progress it. And then now she can eat beans like anybody else. But initially it does sometimes require a little bit of modifications and taking it slow. Do you have any other tips?
I think that sounds good.
Okay. All right. Let's keep going on these questions. If I don't completely move to vegan/whole foods eating, but add in a lot more fruits/veggies, will I see benefits? Absolutely. Whatever you can do to move in that direction in terms of reducing your processed foods and reducing your animal foods and increasing your whole plant foods, you will definitely see benefits. So a lot of my patients, they call themselves plant forward, to where they're moving forward towards a plant-based diet and reducing animal and processed foods. Also another term that one of my patients used was that she eats with a plant slant, to where she is adding more and more plant foods to her plate, to her day. So yeah, I encourage you to keep moving in the direction of healthy, more plant food eating. Next question is, what is your feeling on juicing? Should we be chewing/eating more of our food? If you do juice, how often? You guys are really asking good questions. You'll take that.
Okay, sure. So in general, you are absolutely right. We should be chewing and eating most of our food because, that's one way the brain kind of knows that food is being taken in. So when you're drinking something, you can get in those calories very quickly. So it takes a while for the brain to kind of get the idea, okay, there's so much amount of food. And the other thing we don't like so much about juicing, because it leaves most of the fiber behind. And as we covered, fiber is just, it's one nutrient that really should have its own category. We're always talking about carbs and protein and fats. We should really be talking more about fiber, because this is without fiber, it is impossible to have good health. Having said all that, there are definitely specific times when juice can be used. So, when you're having, let's say, there was a question earlier about irritable bowel or even inflammatory bowel disease. So when you're trying to give the bowel a rest and you want to get lots of vitamins, lots of minerals in quickly, then I will prescribe my patients mostly vegetable juices. So we're giving them, juices like, it has celery, cucumber. We put a little bit of orange or a little bit of apple. So it's a little bit easier to tolerate, it's a little sweeter, but we don't want to make it too sweet on the juices because that makes the sugar in the juice too high. You can eat as many apples as you like, but apple juice is a little bit too much concentrated sugar. So when we do juice, we do it in the context of mostly vegetables, a little bit of fruit. And again, we do much more smoothies, which retains the fiber. And in general, we want to chew our food. So you're 100% correct.
Given the deep cultural and emotional connections many/most people have to food, in addition to important facts/data, how else do you help motivate people to consider change when there is this emotional, cultural, and/or anchor or obstacle?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So food is more than just calories. It's the way we connect, it's the way we celebrate, it's the way we feel part of the community. So one of the ways we kind of encourage people to move in this direction is one, not to do it too abruptly, because that's just not feasible from a long-term sustainability perspective. And, these days it is so easy. So let's say someone likes collard greens with ham. So we say, okay, maybe instead of ham, maybe trying collard greens and trying some other flavoring, some other fat, which is similar. And so just, making the transition that the foods are still familiar. And these days, there's so many recipes that the foods are familiar from a emotional and cultural perspective, and yet are made much healthier. And you don't have to go all the way at once. Okay. And the other thing we do in our clinic is provide folks with community. And when they see other people eating this way, from the same ethnic background, we do potlucks for our patients. So that's something you can really kind of encourage amongst all of you to do, few families do some potlucks, and you make your favorite dishes and just do the best you can by reducing the animal foods or removing it, keeping the same spices, keeping the same aromas. And if you do it as a community, then everyone's kind of moving in this direction slowly, then slowly these changes take hold. And once you do a little bit, you feel a little bit better, then you have internal motivation to keep going. So, take it slow, find some community, find familiar foods that you can, reduce the animal products from. So, but really good question. Okay, I'm going to try to move to the next question because we're at the end of the page. Okay, go ahead, Dr. B.
Okay. Are there any foods you recommend eating together that can better help the body absorb the nutrients? I've heard it's a good idea to always eat salads with avocado because avocado helps the body to better absorb the nutrients from the other vegetables in the salad. Yeah, that is absolutely right. We do more like nuts and seeds in our salads because you do need some fat to better absorb the nutrients in the greens. And like in the smoothie with the greens, I also put in flax seeds, chia seeds, some fat because it does help you absorb it better. And other things like iron in spinach and in greens, it's absorbed better with some vitamin C. So that's why in green smoothie, when you put in a little fruit as well, the vitamin C in the fruit helps you absorb the iron better in the greens. But in general, putting, things, different plant fruits together, a lot of times it'll automatically happen.
Okay, so this will be our last question that we'll answer. I'm going to read it, Dr.
Yeah, the keto diet was a huge fad during quarantine where some people have lost a lot of weight. How does a whole food plant-based diet differ from the keto diet?
So this is one of my favorite questions because I get this asked a lot. And there's no question, 100%, that you do lose weight on the keto diet. But, this reminds me of a quote by Dr. Michael Greger. He says, the goal of weight loss shouldn't be to fit into a skinnier casket. I'm kind of saying that tongue in cheek. So we want to lose weight in the most health promoting way. So the foods that are in the keto diet, they give us higher chance of cancer, heart disease, diabetes, all these problems that may not show up for 5, 10, 15 years later, but slowly they're brewing in the body. But when you're eating whole plant foods, you're still losing the weight, but you're losing it in the most health promoting way. You're making your heart disease less, diabetes less, reducing your risk of cancer. So we're losing the weight both ways. And actually there's even more research which says that when you use whole food plant-based diet, and they've done very strict experiments, you actually lose more weight on whole foods than on a keto diet. This is, a larger question. But one, I just want to assure you lose as much, if not more, on a whole food plant-based diet. And number two, you're doing it in the most health promoting way. So we have another meeting to jump onto. I really want to thank the Coalition for Healthy School Food for giving us this opportunity, and really enjoyed the questions and spending this evening with you. We both want to wish you the very best on your plant-based journey.
Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. It means a lot to us, and I feel like everybody here, including myself, learned something really interesting here tonight. So thank you guys so much.
Oh,
And-
thank you for having us. It was a lot of fun. You have a wonderful community, and I think you guys are really going to make a difference. And
Thank you again. And thank you guys so much for joining us, and we hope to see you at our next presentation